Okay, so what you're looking at behind me is my Lexus IS300. It's a 2001, and it's been beat to crap, as most of you already know. So, today a lot of work has to be done because I have taken this car into a ditch, a curb, and many other things. A lot. So, on this side, you can see what I've already done. Is the Lexus IS300 big brake conversion, Tein flexi coilovers, replaced every single suspension arm, repainted the brake calipers, and a bunch of other things. And I'm going to show you how I did it on that side. So hopefully the other side goes a lot smoother because that side took a while, a lot of work, but we should be good. Now as far as the before and after is concerned, this is what the car looked like before it got lowered with the big brake kit and everything, and this is what it's going to look like after. Ignore all that stuff. I'm going to be replacing the fender and all the broken bits, and I do have a wide body sitting and ready to go. I just got to get good fenders. But you can see just how much lower it sits over here. And yeah, I'm probably going to be removing the whole front end of the car. But first, we get this thing up in the air and do a full inventory of what needs to be done. And you could just the height difference between this side and the other side is really making it pretty well known as to how it's going to look. So, step one, get the car up in the air. All four is up. And let's go from there. Okay, so the car's up on jacks, and I couldn't resist, spraying it down a little bit, mainly because this car spent so much time on the dry lake bed that was literally covered in muck and gunk. So, step one is to pop these wheels off. Is that wheel bearing bad? Goddamn. Again. Well, I just replaced the other side wheel bearing, so let's see how these ones do. Okay, so that one's not too bad. But I'm going to let it dry off a little bit, and then come take this car apart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do each install as if I'm not doing the other. So I'll do the coilovers first, do a whole coilover video, then I'll do a front suspension video, and then I'll do the RCA and big brake kit video. So that way I can split it up into 3 different parts, and if you're not interested in doing a big brake kit, or if you're not interested in doing coilovers or control arms, you can watch the respective video that you're interested in. Nice and simple, right? Damn, I gotta clean up this engine, replace the PCV. I already did the valve covers, but it looks like again it's leaking. So, there's a lot of other stuff to do on this car. It's actually not that bad when it's wet. It's only when it's dry does it look like shit. Probably gonna pull off these fenders too once I'm done with the coilovers and stuff installed. Okay, so the first job that I'm going to do is going to be the coilovers. I'm going to start from the rear because that's the easiest one to do. And to be honest, they're both really easy. It's, I believe, just 4 bolts to get them in and out. Step 1, as you can probably guess, pull the wheel off. Because that's going to make shit easier. Well, step 1 is certainly jack out the carpet. Step 2, pull the wheel off. So now next back here, you're going to see that 19mm bolt. That goes to the bottom of the shock. So just remove that, and then there'll be 3 bolts on the inside of the trunk that we'll have to get to. Also, yes, I know it's not an impact socket, but Harbor Freight is Harbor Freight. I believe in it. So normally this is where I would say use a hammer or a fine adjustment tool, aka a small hammer, to gently tap that bolt out. I'm currently missing my fine adjustment tool, so I will be using a large adjustment tool, which is going to be doing this. So to get the bolts from the inside, all you gotta do is open this bitch up, pop that boy right there, put drink, and those 3 bolts right there. Most cars will have a bunch of this stuff already in here. I do not, as you can clearly tell. I'll put the rest of this car back together, but I want to get this stuff done first. So as you can see, the other side already has the flexi installed. This side is still wearing an OEM strut. I believe that's about a 10 or 14 mil. Okay, so pop out these 3 little bolts right here and it should come right out. Nice and easy. So what's funny is when I did the other side, it didn't have these 2 bolts over here, but those are 12mm, and that's also located in the strut in place. I don't believe the coilovers actually have those 2 bolts on them. So I don't know where they're actually structurally important or not. I know for sure when I took the original strut out on the passenger side, it didn't happen, period. Also, pulling the sway bar end link out from the other side should make it easier too. Since I've already got the actual coilover attached on the other side, it should be making it harder to push down on the actual lower control arm and suspension assembly. Once the sway bar end link is out, it should be easier to droop the rear suspension on either side. So that right there is going to be the sway bar end link. It should be a 12mm as well. Now that sway bar end link bolt is off, next step is to take out this lower control arm bolt from the actual hub assembly. Super easy to do. I had already taken it out a little bit, but now you should be able to drop this lower control arm or trailing arm or whatever this arm is called once this bolt is out. And don't lose these. These are going to be your alignment shims or alignment whatever the fuck they are. They set your toe, I believe, or camber. They say camber. And you have to, if you have to, sometimes just pop an extension in there to force the bolts out. Put the jack in to raise it back up so you can pull the extension out. There you go. Now this guy should pop right. Oh, yep. So there's that. So you see how that bounced back up? So now you should just easily be able to pry this thing down a little bit more. I'm going to use the sledgehammer handle. Pop it in between right there. Just like so. And voila. Nice and easy. So again, sledgehammer handle right there. Use to pry against the arm. The strut just pops right out. Well, might need a little bit of finagling at the bottom, but that's going to be not hard. So if the old shock is stuck in there, just pop a pry bar in underneath it and pop it right out, which is what I just did right now. So this guy should be coming right on out. I very simply slide the new one in, just like that. Might have to rotate the top hat or something to get it to fit in there a little bit. But once that's in, just position the hole on the bottom, put the bolt through, 3 bolts on top. Okay, so the upper shock tower bolt should be torqued down to about 47 foot-pounds. I'm going to have Loctite on all of them just to make sure they don't go anywhere. They won't, to be totally real. But I like overkilling things, and just as an extra safety precaution, why not, right? Okay, so both of these shock bolts, or the shock bolt and the camber bolt right here, are going to be torqued down to 81 foot-pounds at 19mm. So I'm going to be Loctiting those and torquing both of them down. I believe that one goes to 22 foot-pounds. The little guy that is the sway bar end link and the headlight auto level. So don't forget to reinstall the headlight auto level right there, otherwise you'll have a code on your dash and the headlights will point to a point where they're pretty much useless after that.
Okay, so for whatever reason, I don't have audio right here. It's happened for the next few clips, but it's pretty simple what I'm about to say. I'm here on the top of the front strut assembly. So the front end of the car, as you can probably guess. And I'm going to be pulling off the top 3 bolts to remove the strut. Now to do that, you have to take this connector off too, which I believe all of these are 10mm bolts or 14mm bolts, or somewhere in between. It's been like a couple months since I recorded this and I started to edit the video. The car is now running and driving, and I finally have time to actually edit video. So here you are. The next step is to remove the bolts on the bottom. The lower shock mount bolt connects to the lower control arms. Now, to pull this shock out easily, I would recommend taking out the upper control arm ball joint bolt from the steering knuckle. It's going to allow you to pull the shock out way easier. Now, one thing I want to mention is don't torque down the lower shock bolt until you place weight on the suspension.
Okay, so now that the upper ball joint right here is removed from the knuckle, it's super easy to get the strut out. I just need to snip this wire, cable tie that's holding in my wheel speed sensor. That was not me, that was the last owner. But once that's out, it should just come right out. I'm sure I could just probably do this, wiggle it around. Oh shit. Well, point being, yeah, the strut's super easy to get out. So in my particular instance, I'm going to be replacing all the actual upper control arm, lower control arm, basically everything. So it's not too big a deal if I damage a boot on the U-joint. But more than likely you might not be, and I would just have one suggestion for you. Don't use a pickle fork, instead get one of these guys from Harbor Freight. I believe it's actually called a ball joint tool, I'm not too sure. But what you do is you pop it right here. You pop it right here on top of it, and then you just tighten up the screw, and it presses on the actual threaded part of the ball joint and just forces it out. It's way better than using a pickle fork, so much easier, and it actually works more often than not. Whereas a pickle fork will work, but it'll also tear up the boot and make it almost unusable. Again, you see this boot, it's pretty much still in good shape. The ball joint, however, is not. It should not be that easy to swing back and forth. So it's a very good thing I'm replacing that upper arm too. I'm actually going to be replacing the whole front suspension and get that done. I guess I'll probably fast forward to the part where I'm just putting the strap back in. But I'll pull up this upper control arm, take this lower control arm sway bar and link off because I'm going to be replacing that. Replace the rear forward control or rear lower control arm and the forward lower control arm, basically, and the tie rod. I'm also going to be pulling the hub assembly off, which means I'm going to be disconnecting the wheel speed sensor and pulling the brake caliper off. I'm going to be work the heel. What's this uneven brake wear? Looks like my caliper and rotor are seized together. That's not good. And there's a lot of metal debris around the actual wheel speed sensor, so I'm going to guess that this wheel bearing is gone. Anyway, we'll pop this out and go from there. Okay, so these little bolts get torqued down to 26 foot-pounds. I have the bolts on them right now just to hold in each one so I can torque each one down individually because, again, it's not being held in by anything from the bottom. Now, the keen-eyed observers among you guys will have noticed that there's a little, like, round ring thing that goes on here that is meant to be like a reinforcing puck, which I don't have. I don't have it on the other side either. I'm guessing the last owner had coilovers on this car, and they took them off and swapped in these shitty KYB, like clearly blown the fuck out struts that don't really match on both sides, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if they left that little piece off the car. For now, I don't really have it. I'm not too sure the purpose of those parts, but they're labeled as strut tower reinforcements for the front in the parts diagram, so I'm going to guess that they're important. I'm going to be picking up a Megan Racing strut tower braces for the front and rear, and I'm hoping that that'll alleviate some of the issues, but I'm also trying to find them online and buy them so that I can install them later. But again, my main goal right now is to get this car ready for Vegas Drift, so I'm going to go ahead and put it together without them and see what happens. If it from what I've heard, it might cause some clunky noises, but as long as the car doesn't fold under pressure, which actually I gotta weld these up because the last owner also cut holes in the strut towers, cause yeah. But once I weld those up and get those done, I'm hoping that the car should be structurally sound enough to go drifting with. The lower shock bolt right here gets torqued down to 47 foot-pound. Okay, so this upper control arm bolt is going to be torqued down to 50 foot-pounds. It's going to have a cotter pin going through it, just like the lower control arm one. Okay, so this stance and setup isn't going to be the final setup for the car, but this is what it looks like once the coilovers are installed on both sides. Keep in mind, this is at the factory ride height. Mine is sitting about half an inch lower than it should, or 2 inches, or a decent amount lower than it should because I had to install the RCAs for the big brake kit. That's going to be a different video. I did spot these Option Lab wheels on here because the add-on DSO7s I had on the front were damaged in a wreck. So I'm running these temporarily until I can get one more add-on. But overall, this is the look of the car. Once everything's torqued down, it pretty much goes pretty well. I'll have the other videos of me replacing all the control arms and everything else uploaded pretty soon. Doing the big brake kit, the stainless steel brake lines, and all the other stuff. Anyway, if you like this video, hit like. If you want to see more stuff, hit subscribe. And I'm pretty sure you know to torque the lug nut bolts down to 80 foot-pound. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. It came out pretty damn nice. I still gotta work on this thing. God damn, that's solid. But yeah. I gotta go get it aligned too. I took it to Vegas Drift. I realized that these wheels are both towed out quite a bit, and so are the rear wheels. Apparently that's going to be a side effect of lowering it. I did install Megan Racing adjustable rear tow arms. That's also going to be another video. I got a ton of stuff that I need to post.